was at a board meeting for Construction Suppliers Association. I serve on the board.
I just have chills hearing that. It sounds so exciting.
Well, listen, so it's a group based out of Georgia, dedicated to
I've heard of this group.
Strengthening the independent lumber building material dealer.
Yes, I've heard of this group.
We met in Abbeville, Alabama, South Alabama.
This isn't that one on that like big ranch.
No, this was home of Great Southern Wood Preserver, or the Yellow Fella, Yellowwood.
Okay.
And an amazing corporate location. It's a small town, about 2,900 people. Yellowwood, or Great Southern Wood Preserving, is quite a large company.
Okay.
This guy started it 50 years ago, selling 2 units of lumber out of the back of his pickup truck, basically. It's grown to an enormous company. Mr. Jimmy is widely regarded as the wealthiest man in the state of Alabama.
Nice.
And so he took his hometown, Abbeville, Alabama, and instead of building a big corporate skyrise, he went into the historic downtown and he's remade all of the storefronts.
Cool.
And so you'll see like the old vintage theater, and you'll walk in and it's their purchasing department.
Oh, that's cool.
So you walk in, it looks like a stock room, but from the outside, it's like you look like you could watch Grease,
Star Wars
there, or Star Wars.
Yeah.
So he is literally breathed life back into Main Street America, as
Yeah.
opposed to sort of suck the soul out of it.
Yeah.
It was a phenomenal experience, and they hosted us. I got to sit and talk with Mr. Jimmy for just a moment. He's a big Auburn supporter.
Okay.
Buddies with Charles Barkley, Bo Jackson.
Okay. I'm sure my friends would know who that are. They're big Auburn fans.
Yeah. He's
Big Auburn fans.
guy. Big Auburn.
Okay.
So, phenomenal trip. Good.
But these
good
guys
meeting.
are like, we're Auburn #1, but if Auburn loses, we'll cheer for Alabama. That doesn't sound right, does it?
It doesn't sound right.
But that's what they do.
Do they?
Yeah.
It's kind of a state loyalty.
Well, they grew up cheering for Alabama, but went to Auburn University.
Right.
It just doesn't seem
That's
right.
very strange. For me, if LSU goes down,
Yeah.
I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm
Are you
Bipsy.
cheering for Bipsy?
I'm
Yeah,
going to
absolutely.
Bipsy. Absolutely. The Cavs, baby. We're going hard.
Cavaliers.
Going hard for those Cavs.
Yeah.
So that's where I was last week, but I'm glad to be back.
Cool.
How you been doing?
Good. I'm trying to think of what's been happening. Let's see, Easter weekend. Yeah, it was a busy weekend. My oldest is taking driver's ed.
Did you do a sunrise service?
No, but we did a Black Friday service. Good Friday service, not Black Friday.
Okay. I think that's the wrong.
Good Friday.
Good Friday. Gotcha.
Yeah, which was pretty dark.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
There was no sunrise, right? It was very cloudy,
Yeah.
so we didn't get a sunrise service.
Yeah, not yet. So a Good Friday service, and we busy weekend. Had a family over and boiled some crawfish for the first time for this season.
Ooh, yeah, and you're pretty good at that, right?
I enjoy doing it.
Yeah. How many pounds do you like to throw in there?
This time we did 45 pounds
45 pounds
of crawfish.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so now how much? What's the cost per pound right now? What's the?
That was $5 a pound live.
Is that higher?
That's higher than normal.
It's much higher than normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did that, and so, but there were like 10 adults and 4 or 5 teenagers, so we just split up the cost. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, 45 pounds,
Yeah.
right? And then you had your sides. What did you do for the sides?
Sausage, obviously, down home.
Oh.
From your neck of the woods.
Locally
Yes,
produced
down home.
in Stonewall,
Yeah.
Louisiana.
If they want to sponsor, I'd eat sausage on this podcast.
I do it every weekend.
Yeah.
Every weekend.
Yeah. I like the green onion.
No. I'm an original guy.
The original?
guy.
Okay.
Listen,
Or the hot. I mean, I'll do the hot.
Okay.
But if you go to Sam's, you ever go to Sam's?
I never go to Sam's.
Okay. So you go to Sam's, the same price you pay at Brookshire's for 1.5 pounds, you get 5 pounds or 4.5 pounds at Sam's of down home.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, it's pretty good. So down home, obviously you got the lemon, onion, garlic, mushrooms, potato, corn.
So
seasoning.
people, for the listener who's
Yeah.
not from Louisiana, this
Yeah.
has got to sound
Yeah.
like the craziest.
Yeah, our international audience.
Our international audience. Well,
Yeah.
this has got to seem like the craziest idea, right? To cook these bugs.
Yeah, they're pretty gross.
Yeah. But
So it's a delicacy
but
here.
you enjoy it.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right.
Then we throw in some shrimp.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
A little high class.
Yep.
Yes. Nice.
So
Very nice.
crawfish and driver's ed and sports. My kids are in sports, so they've all started. A busy weekend.
Yeah. On the
All right.
on the business front, how's things
Yes.
looking?
Business front. I think that things are picking up. Slow start to the year. It's probably always a little slow to start the year. But I feel like as a business owner, at the end of the year, December, and the beginning of the year in January, there just seems to be like 50 entities pulling at your money. You feel that?
Yes.
I mean, you're having to pay the government, the occupancy, you're having to pay this, you're having to renew this subscription, you're having to renew this. And so it's a lot of expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that can be very frustrating because that's also the time of the year where for our industry it's a little slower. So lower income, I let my people off for holidays, New Year's, all that. So we lose income there.
Right.
And then expenses. And so
Taxes.
yeah, taxes.
Yeah.
Taxes are due.
Yeah.
They're due.
Yeah.
Soon.
It really is phenomenal when you think about, sometimes I go and check the mail,
Yeah.
at the store. And sometimes people will make a, comment like, hey man, give me some of that money.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
I say, look, I make the same deal for every single person.
Yeah.
And I tell them this. I say,
Yeah.
look, I will happily give you every cent that's in this mailbox, but here's what you got to do. You got to take the bills. No one's taking me up on it.
No, nobody wants the bills. I watched E.T. with my kids the other day for the first time, right? And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, hey guys, y'all know the moral of this story? And they're like, oh, aliens. And I'm like, no, the government is here to take everything you enjoy. So by the end of the movie, we're like, hey, y'all see these guys in these suits? They're like, we know it's the government. They're coming to take it, take everything.
Man. So speaking of the government.
Yeah, speaking of the government.
Now we're here today to talk about something that I'm very excited
Yes.
to get into because I feel like, let me back up. So I went to a college.
Yep.
Mississippi College.
Yep.
And I studied business
What was that mascot?
administration. The Choctaw.
Ooh,
Choctaw.
edit that out.
So listen, very, very good relationship between
Okay.
the college and
Gotcha.
the local people.
Did they come watch y'all's games?
They did not.
Okay.
But here's the deal. During my time in college,
Yep.
I kind
Business
of
administration. Okay.
I kind of stumbled into business administration. And what I found that a lot of the people who found themselves in business administration really were there because they had nowhere else to go. They just, after a couple of years.
Sorry, that is my watch. Funny story real quick, and we'll get back to this.
Okay.
But, I wear this Apple Watch, and I really just need to disable Siri because my hand's so fat. Every time I bend my wrist, it Siri starts talking. And Beckham, my 11-year-old, got baptized this Sunday.
Oh, I saw the video.
Yeah, and so I go to dunk him, and when I do that, Siri
knocks
talking.
off.
Oh, it was great. Anyways,
And that you can find that footage online.
yes.
So, okay, well,
All right, back to this business administration.
I was in business administration.
Yes.
Many of the people who were in business administration, basically after a couple of years were like, look, we got nothing. We're just going to go into business. That's an easy thing.
Yep.
That'll work, right?
Yep.
So I was one of those people. I found myself in business after a couple of years. And what I noticed as I got through the programs is I was really disillusioned in a lot of ways because I didn't feel like the classes were particularly helpful.
Yep.
I'd spent a little time growing up with my dad's business and, I felt like I knew a little something about business, even as a, 20-year-old, 19-year-old. And so many of the classes that I would sit through, besides the math classes, accounting, finance, which were fine, they were good. I just felt like so many of those classes just really would not have prepared me for, a real career in business.
They're very idealistic views, right?
Very academic, right?
Academic.
Yeah.
If everything goes right, this is what you should expect.
Right. But even the subjects, some people may not have a very practical application for macroeconomics or microeconomics. Some of those principles are very helpful, but that's just one class out of many.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like if you're going to go into business, what we're going to talk about today should be Business Class 101.
Yep.
The first class they teach in every business school in America should be this class.
Okay.
And so we're going to get into this book, the Dale Carnegie classic book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
How old were you when you read that? Do you remember reading it? Was it required in a college course?
It was not required in a college course, so I read it after college when I was probably 25 years old.
Samesies.
Right? I know. So
yeah, I was 25. I was after grad school.
Yes.
Read it, yeah.
And it pops up on so many, business leaders must-read lists, and there's a real reason.
Yeah,
many reasons.
I was thinking about this. This is yesterday because I knew we were going to talk about this. This book came out in the mid-30s.
1936.
1936.
Wow.
In the middle of the Great Recession, right? Or the
Great Depression.
The Great Depression.
Okay, I'd have to check my calendar, but I'm
it is. Great Depression, I think, was end of the 20s until World War II really ended the Great Depression.
Okay.
So it was right in the middle of the Great Depression. And I was thinking, it's interesting that he found this market in a time where money was hard to get. Jobs were hard to find.
Yeah.
There was a lot of probably hopelessness, right?
Sure.
And his idea, and this just came to me when I was driving, but this idea of, the battleground, if the battleground's always going to be on your product or your business, you're going to always have competition that does exactly what you do.
Sure.
Right.
Or maybe cheaper, right?
Cheaper, right? And so the battleground has to be the intangibles. And, and he found this niche kind of at this time where there was a lot of despair and depression, if you will. And so he brings in this mindset of thinking of others, how to get others to like you, how to build relationships. And that was really kind of a new concept. But then even you think of today, right? We're not in the best economy today.
Right.
Income is lower. We're dealing with some very high inflation because of all the money that was printed during the pandemic. And, it's the same principles apply.
Well, right? 100%. The title, this book has had such a long, lasting impact. But I think for today's audience, the title might be a little misconstrued because How to Win Friends and Influence People today can probably have a little bit of a negative connotation.
Yeah.
But really, when you get into the topics of the book, that's really not the best way to describe what this book is all about. It's not really so much about manipulation, right?
And that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's ultimately about, being a good person.
Yeah. How to win friends and influence AI. How about that?
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
No, so but I do agree because there is a part in this book where he says, make people think they're interesting. And I'm like, well, that's kind of, now you're being fake, right? And that kind of comes through. You don't want to be, because let's be honest, not everybody's interesting, right?
That's true.
You would have other people being like, wow, he's acting really interested in that, and that guy's not interested. He's a car salesman, right? And that's what you think of is like, you don't want to act interested or make people feel important because you want something from them.
Correct.
You want to make them feel important because they are important.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
You don't want to make someone feel interesting though necessarily because they might not be interesting, but they are all important.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I think when I look back at some of the most impressive people I've ever met, I'm thinking of this guy who was very high up in, I think it was Microsoft, executive, very high up, and we were in a social setting, a big wedding party, many people. I'm really not important to this person, I'm just a visitor, a guest, really, and I could just tell instantly this guy had studied this book because the way he made me feel in that moment, the way that and we'll get into basically the big topics, but it is amazing that when you see people that really make you go, wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty impressive individual.
Yeah.
it feels like all they're doing is just they've just read the book.
They say that Bill Clinton was like, that was his big thing, is like on the campaign trail he would revisit somewhere a year later and remember people's names.
Exactly.
Which is crazy.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and I know like George Bush Sr. Was it Senior? I think it was Senior, but I remember reading something about him, and he said, "What's the most important thing you do, or has gotten you here?" And he says he was like writing thoughtful letters to people, or writing thoughtful cards to people.
Exactly.
It's pretty crazy.
So
let's want to go through it, or how do we?
Yeah, let's talk about some of the high points. But you know, before we get into this, I want to contrast this with maybe some of the ideas about what the greats in business are celebrated for. You know, there's certainly a lionization or a celebration.
You don't think that Elon puts this into practice?
I don't know about Elon, but this is kind of what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that the champions of business are usually celebrated for a certain ferocity, or what we would call sharp elbows. You know, the people who are just tough as nails, who can negotiate, who've got incredible vision,
Bezos,
who are just these forces of nature, really.
Steve Jobs.
But when you listen to many of them, and I'm not talking about the biggest of the big, I'm talking about some others who don't have household names.
That's correct.
But they're running billion-dollar companies. You can tell they're more of this school than this, you know, sharp-elbowed shark that's out there just devouring people left and right. Because I think the reason this is true is because in an organization, you know, it's led through, it's led through vision, it's led through character, it's led through, a certain type of voice. And to move people in a certain way, there's a way to do that. And power is not always the best way to do that, just raw power. What do you think?
I think it makes me think, I think it was in one of Malcolm Gladwell's books, but he does this study. You know, it might have been in one of Grant's books, Give and Take, maybe, I'm not sure, but they do this study on the size of the CEO's picture on their annual reports. And they kind of make this correlation of how well liked they are, and really look at how the company, they'll like see a company that implodes, and their previous annual reports, like their CEO had a full page in the report of their picture.
Oh, right? Yeah.
And so it's kind of like this very high view of just this mindset that a CEO or business leader has.
Right.
And we kind of went into this on the last episode about, you know, it's not me, it's we. And so a lot of these principles apply to that. But I think that honestly, the ones that are household names would probably be the antithesis of a lot of this. That's why they're household names, right? Because they've made a lot of noise. But the true, really best business-minded people, we probably will never even know who they are.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, so let's get into it. Now, you touched on this just a little bit, but one of the biggest points that's made in the book in winning friends and influencing people is becoming genuinely interested in other people.
Yep.
People crave attention and appreciate those who show interest in them.
Yep. So
the difference between being fake and becoming genuinely interested in other people, what's that like?
Oh, well, I think it goes into this having just somewhat being empathetic and understanding that this person you have goals, you have aspirations, you have hobbies, you have a family. Well, so does this other person, right? And they're completely different. And just having that understanding, and what's important to them is important to them, right? We always say, this goes back to Donald Miller's his training program, but there can only be one hero in every story, and we're the hero of our story.
Right.
And so if we try, as a leader, to be the hero in someone else's life, then there's going to come to a head.
That's exactly right.
And so, being interested in other people. I think that, part of that is just listening. I think it goes into that here some, and I'm the worst at this, 100% the worst. I think that our cell phones have made it really hard to act interested in other people.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
So.
And listen, I appreciate your honesty on the mic here. I think naturally I am decently equipped for this. I'm just naturally a curious person.
Yep.
Sometimes the weirdest people are the most interesting to me. They make me laugh a lot of times.
Yep.
And so just naturally, I have no problem listening to what people have to say. And I do have a posture of being curious with most people. Like, even somebody who I think is a jerk, I'm going to sit back and go, I wonder why this person is the way they are, right? What happened to them, or why do they think this is an effective way to behave? So even in the moments of people that I don't necessarily like, I still find myself stepping back and going, I wonder why they do that. Isn't that interesting?
Well, and I think that, I don't think acting interested or being interested in other people is not as much your response to what they're saying, but it's asking questions to get them to say, right? To get them to open up. Right. And that's really I'm more appealing. I get more drawn to people who I can tell don't want to open up or don't want to talk. And it's kind of like asking questions and getting them to open up, right? And, So it's funny, yesterday, I knew we were talking about this, and so I opened up Blinkist. You ever heard of Blinkist?
Yeah.
Okay. So it condenses all these books into like 15 minutes, right? It's like Cliff Notes audio. It's great. And so I was like,
I like that prep.
I was like, it's been years since I've read this book. I said, I was like, I'm just going to cut this on real quick. And my 15-year-old was in the car with me. And within 2 minutes, he's like, we had to get out, and he's like, are we going to finish it when we get back in? I was like, yeah.
I love
he's
it.
Like, you have any other books like this? It was like, his lights were going off,
Yes.
So.
And listen, it's so powerful because we're talking about this in a business context. But look, what better advice for a youngish teenage boy who might have problems socially? I remember being in youth group as an 8th grader, 9th grader, and you're around all the older kids. And I remember them being in a circle and just feeling so out of place and not knowing what to say and just feeling alone in that group of kids. With this, that totally knocks all that out, because
you can think back. I can think back to being a kid, a middle schooler or a high schooler, when someone who was 4 or 5 years older than me actually acted interested in what I had to say.
Yes.
And I remember those instances and those people 100%.
You always do, right?
You always do.
And so the point about becoming genuinely interested in other people, which I think is very, very important, is that people can recognize whether this is a real thing or a fake thing. I mean, to your point earlier, I think that we all have recognized those moments when somebody comes in, maybe they're, up the hierarchy, and you just know they don't give a rip about you. You just feel it. You just, maybe they're your boss or whoever. You just know when they do not care about you one iota. That does not exactly energize you in the mission, right? Now you flip the table, and the boss comes in and is asking about you, asking about how your day's going or your family. How does that change for you in terms of how you're responding to the mission that you're a part of?
Well, I think that to go back a step further, I think that what we need to do as leaders in organizations is allowing time for that in our schedule. Because I feel like there's probably a lot of people in my organization that feel like I don't think they're important, and it's because I'm just going from one thing to the next. I don't have time to stop and ask for 2 minutes. Hey, how was your weekend? Or, how's your kids' ball team doing? Or whatever it is, it's just one thing to the next. And so I think that's, for us, is allow some capacity there. But I think that I think it goes a long ways. I think that that's way more valuable than a compensation plan in an organization.
Well, it's certainly a way to show appreciation. In a way that people really need it.
And I think it's simple. I think it's just, I think that one thing that we do, this comes from another book I read, The $1 Trillion Coach, but it's like, just don't start every meeting started off asking how their weekend was or how things are going. Don't just get straight to business. And that's tough, right? Because we have an agenda and we want to get to business and we want to go to the next thing.
That's right. That's a great way.
But you also think about this. For most people in our culture, that might be the only time that whole week or month anybody actually asks them how they're doing.
Right. Well, because your wife's not asking about how you're doing, right?
She is. I just might not always want to talk about it.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah,
Cut that.
Yep.
Okay, so I think this is such a huge point. I like that it's first in talking about the big points of the book.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go to this next one, see what you think about the bounce this off of you.
Okay.
The next one is smile. A sincere smile is contagious and makes you more approachable.
That's funny is when we the two biggest things I remember from this book is smiling and remembering people's names. Mm-hmm. I'm bad at both. Yeah. But you know what I was thinking too, even this, and I say this to my agents all the time, is like, hey, I'm going to give you 10 things that cost you no money. Like, it costs you no money. Smile, remember a name, say thank you, say please, ask how you're doing. Like that, show up on time. Like, those are things that don't cost you any money.
That's right.
They go a long ways.
That's right.
Right? Because we always think of like, what can I do to get one up or to be more successful or to move the needle? And we're like, well, I got to spend money on marketing, or I got to be at this place, or I have to host this event. I'm like, not really. There's things you can do for free.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I love that, because when I would go back to the business school example, I mean, how much more applicable is all this in real life business than, macroeconomics or, who knows what they're teaching now. But this to me is not only is it just trying to be a good, genuine person that, honestly is going to have a well-rounded life, but it's also a great way to build business. I mean, just a fantastic way to build business, as opposed to, being that shark or saying, hey, look at me, look at how great I am. Yeah. So smile, when I think about smile, I see how I can catch another dimension of the point. Number one, the point of just smiling is very important. Mm-hmm. Smile and the world smiles back, right? You've heard.
Yep.
But I think it's talking about the energy and aura that you put out. Mm-hmm. So when you enter the business, I've had people tell me before, we know when you're not having a good day. And I'm thinking, really?
Yeah.
Are you paying attention to me?
Yeah.
But the reality of it is that people are watching you. And so the energy that you come into the workplace with, of your positivity, your energy, your problem solving skills, like, hey, no matter what's going on today. I give you this point. We talked about the boss for Great Southern, fantastic leader, one of the best I've ever been around. They were hacked. Their computer system was hacked. And this is a very large company by the Russian mob, basically. And as they're going through this, the head of their tech department, you can understand that he's a little unnerved about what's going on, right?
Sure.
I mean, they've got FBI involved. This is a very serious thing, and they are losing a lot of money fast. And he said that Mr. Jimmy just pulled them all together and said, Listen, boys and girls, we're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. We're going to be okay. We're just going to get through this. We're going to push through. We're going to get through this. And he said that attitude and that spirit really calmed them all down. If the head guy is coming in and saying, guys, we're going to get through it. It's okay. Relax. Yep. We're going to be alive tomorrow. And they're sitting there just freaking out about what's a really serious situation that very few business owners will ever go through.
Oh, yeah.
And that attitude that he had carried him through it. And so when I think about smile, I think about not only just the superficial, hello, Leighton, how you doing today? Yeah. I think about, your energy that you're putting out that everybody can see, recognize, and ultimately get behind.
Yeah. Yeah, so my business coach actually last session brought this analogy to me, and it's been sticking with me, and I've been sharing it with everybody that I've talked to.
Well, share with me.
Hey,
please.
Our birds are back. I was wondering where they're at. We started a little earlier today. Uh-huh. They're just waking up. They just went and got their worms. All right, so you're either a thermostat or you're a thermometer. Okay.
Oh, say more.
And so a thermometer, most people in our organizations are thermometers. Okay. Thermometers have no control of setting the temperature. They just read the room and adapt to what the temperature is.
Got it.
So if it's cold in the room, they're going to become cold. If it's warm in the room, they're going to become warm. But as leaders, we're the ones that set the thermostat. And we can even use that analogy with the people in our team. Hey, I need you to be a thermostat, not a thermometer.
Right.
Because what's happening is you're just blending in. But when you're a thermostat and you're a leader, if you're coming in and you're frustrated, negative, cold, all the thermometers are going to do the same thing.
That's right.
And so we have to know that, hey, I'm walking in this building, I'm walking in this office, and I'm setting the thermostat at this temperature so everybody else follows along.
Guys, here's how we're doing it today.
Yep.
Here's how we're doing it. Next point, and this one, you mentioned it was one of the biggest ones to you. I cannot believe that more people don't grab onto this because it is, oh man, it's just free money, right? It's just the lowest, it feels like the lowest hanging fruit. And that is, remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language.
Yeah.
Use people's names and remember them.
Yeah. I'm the worst at this. So I'm good at some of the things on the list. I'm bad at this one. So I think that, it's a conscious effort, right? Because when I meet someone, I'm more interested in, maybe my identity for them is what they do or where they're from or something like that. And then I'm like, God, what was that guy's name?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm bad with it. But and some people, I know I've heard some people say the way they remember name is when they're introduced, they'll like try to say their name 3 times within the first couple
it doesn't
sentences.
work for me. I try.
Okay.
It doesn't work.
Yeah. Now you could just be like, hey, hold on one second, take a picture and write their name on your phone. You could do that. Is that creepy?
Well, so I think with this, it is really hard for me, particularly in just a one-off introduction, to remember somebody's name. But where I'm getting at is that, how about for the people that you see like every day, and rather than coming
not remembering their name, their name.
Well, that's right.
You're saying just to set the tone of the conversation.
You're using their name. Like when I come in to say, hello, everybody in the office, if there's 2 people standing there, I'm going to say, hello, Leighton. Hello, Josh. How you guys doing today? I want to use their name.
Gotcha.
Because, think about this in a business setting. If you're in McDonald's or Dairy Queen, right? You go in, you get your food. The clerk says, thanks a lot, pushes your change back on the counter. The difference between that and a clerk saying, hey, thanks, Leighton, it's good to see you again, and then gives you your, I went to Coffee on the Red this morning, and the lady at the clerk knew my name.
Okay. Was it Tessa?
No, it was not. It was Brandy, but she knew my name. And to me, that is such an elevated experience. I don't know what it is. It's so simple, but it's like the difference between a business that you kind of go, it's fine, versus, hey, I like this. And so
I do notice it at a restaurant if the waitress or waiter picks up on our name from the reservation and
absolutely
says, oh, the Allens are here. Or even if they take the credit card and they come back.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Yeah.
Just something, those little details, how much that elevates your experience. Because again, what the book is saying is that is the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Why that is, I'm not sure ultimately, but I think it just has to do with the fact that someone took the time to notice this detail about you.
Yeah.
Somebody was interested in at least your name.
Yeah.
Right? They might not care about anything else. But it feels so simple, but not a ton of people do it.
Yeah.
You're saying it's very difficult for you.
Well, it's difficult for me to remember people's names.
Right.
But I can see where, I probably do this subconsciously, especially if it's a difficult conversation or if it's a reprimand.
Yeah.
By saying, hey, Josh, I've seen this.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Well, that's when I don't want to hear my name. Like, really wish you didn't know my name.
Me, Josh, or the other Josh?
Right. Right.
So, but no, I think it does set the tone. It's a little bit less parent, coming at their kid and getting on to them.
Yeah.
More of a, hey, we're in this business together, and this is what I notice.
Right. Well, that's a hard conversation. So maybe another topic.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're moving on. Now, this one you touched on just a bit, and it's really, they go hand in hand. So be a good listener and then talk in terms of the other person's interest. Why is it important to talk in terms of the other person's interest?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that in the book he used that example of FDR, I think. And anytime he had a meeting, he would go and read a book on what they were interested in so they could talk on their level. Well, I would say, people are interested in themselves. I mean, that's what they want to engage, and they want to talk about what they're interested in. They're not going to be what you're interested in. So, but then the question is their interest like their hobbies, or talk to them in what's in their best interest?
So the way I think about this is, you've had those conversations maybe when you're meeting somebody for the first time, and you're just kind of feeling your way out with a little bit of small talk, a little bit of, how's the weather, blah, blah, blah. And then ultimately you tap into something where that person is passionate about, maybe it's like race car driving or baseball or church or who knows what it is. But as soon as you tap into that topic, you can feel the conversation change. That person who was maybe a little guarded at first, just, maybe for you it's bourbon or whatever it is, you just start to go, oh yeah, let me tell you, like, I love this, I love this, I love this. It totally changes the conversations. That person's gone from being kind of guarded, as we all are when we first meet somebody, to going, oh yeah, let me tell you how much I love this thing. And when people get to that place in conversation, it's just a lot easier to build up those bridges.
The problem is if their interest is soccer. Look, I try. I just don't get it.
I watched the Beckham documentary. It was good.
Yeah, it was good.
It was great.
Did you start watching Premier League soccer afterwards?
No, but it was all the 90s kind of stuff.
It's a good documentary. I can get behind any good sports or music documentary.
Right.
That's exactly.
So documentaries.
Love documentaries.
You love documentaries.
Love documentaries.
That's all I'd have to do is mention documentaries, and you would be like, "Oh, listen, I watch them all."
Yeah, watch them all.
Yeah, and so here we go. Now we're on to something. Now we got something we can work with. But the other person's interest, making them feel comfortable with you, making them open up to you a little bit more. I think that's just kind of part of the playbook, right? And you can look at that as in a manipulative way of, hey, I'm just trying to like find this thing, or again, we start at the top. Does it come from real curiosity?
Sure. Well, I think it's welcoming them in. When Strength Finders, which is a whole nother thing we need to get into. You've done the Strength Finders, so one of mine is win others over, and but part of that is going back to the primal questions we talked about a couple episodes ago, is this idea that my question is, am I wanted? And the result of that is I want other people to feel wanted or included. And so, asking those questions, I can see me naturally doing that.
Right.
And even, I have to pretend sometimes that I'm interested.
Well, but you stick around long enough, and there will be something you can be interested in.
Absolutely.
And maybe he mentions that, hey, I play guitar. It's like, oh, well, that's cool, because I play guitar too. And so we start talking about that thing that we both have an interest in.
Sure.
And then it kind of happens naturally. So we're going to move on to something else. Now, this is a little different. So if you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. Don't be defensive. What does that mean to you?
Well, this is kind of like a top down, like a cultural thing, right? Is that if our people see a leader owning up to a mistake, that's going to kind of bleed down. But I would also say that our first reaction is to get defensive.
Absolutely.
Right. Our first reaction is to feel attacked. And this goes into some of the work that Laurie and I have done with therapy too, is because I'm like, hey, if you have something, maybe say, hey, I want to talk to you about this in a little bit, not, hey, what's going on here, or what, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm going to be defensive.
I was
right off the
last
bat.
Night, for the record. Attacked.
Okay. Ambushed.
As soon as I got home.
As soon as you got home.
First word out of their
Wait,
mouth.
what? Yeah. Or, I'm always like, hey, if things are hostile at the house with the kids, give me a heads up on my way home. I don't want to walk in to a war zone.
Right.
Just let me know what I'm coming into.
Ambushed. I know how it feels.
Yeah.
I know how it feels. Listen, maybe we should get this book. Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's a, that it doesn't happen a whole lot when you're at the top, criticism, or, it should, I mean, I think an ideal situation would be that anybody in the organization could give feedback and criticism, no matter what position they're in. But yeah, I can definitely feel, and I tell my guys all the time on the team, is like, hey, if you make a mistake, just own up to it. Like, it's not a good situation when I find out about a mistake.
Right.
Because that means that it probably happened several weeks ago.
Sure.
And, just tell me, like,
Yes.
so we can work through it together.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it builds trust, right?
Yeah.
Just to admit you're wrong, to say it emphatically, to let people around you know that, you know what, I missed this, and you were right. And I think that it builds trust, it builds a stronger team, it builds a stronger company, ultimately.
Yeah. I mean, it's the antithesis of what we see in politics.
Exactly.
Right. There's never, I mean, when's the last time you heard a politician be like, yep, I got that one wrong?
Yep. They can't do it.
No. Well, they're all attorneys too, so
That's right.
that's probably why.
That's right. Okay, here's another one. Now, this reminded me of the negotiation book that's really popular now, and I'm trying to think of that guy's name. He makes all the podcast rounds.
The $100 million offer?
No. Anyway, but this point is get the other person saying yes immediately.
Oh, yeah.
So in the negotiation book, and I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on it, basically one of the points is that the negotiation doesn't start until the other person gets to a that's right.
Yeah.
And so get the other person saying yes is essentially locking in on what are the perhaps shared incentives or values that's happening between the two people.
Yep.
So what does it mean to you get the other
Well, I
person
think that it's,
saying yes?
I think it's really identifying, speaking of I think it's called the $100 million offer. I just read that book, good book. But, his thing is, what's the ultimate outcome that someone desires? And you want to find that out, right? And that's part of, especially and I hate to go back to these talks I have to have with people that are, when they're misaligned or need to be reprimanded, but I always start out with like the things I know we share, right? Hey, do you want to see this company succeed? Yes. Well, so do I, right? And so you're just finding these commonalities, right? Because really we do agree on 95% of the stuff, right? And then and sometimes this came from my business coach too, is I'll say, what's the ideal outcome for your department? And they'll paint the picture. And then the question is, are your actions directed to making that happen or not? Right. And so then they have to answer, am I? So anyways, that's another one. But yeah. It's
the antithesis of the win-lose negotiation, just kind of defensiveness.
Sure.
It's just trying to create a place of where we agree here, and let's go from there.
Yep.
I listened to a great debate on the way up here, and I constantly found these two very intelligent guys who had a very different opinion. They kept trying, or at least the one kept trying to land in the center with the other, because the other was adamantly opposed to what he was saying, and he just kept trying to say, but it seems like we agree here, and it seems like you would agree with me on this, and he just kept working that angle, and I felt that if he would have taken the opposite approach, which is, hey moron, listen to me, that the conversation's done, that it's over, right? But he just kept trying to find that spot where, hey, we're here, now follow me to the next point that I'm going to make. I think it's a fantastic way to work with people. I'm going to give you another one. Now,
this opens up a question before we leave this one. Would you like to make an extra $100,000 next year working from home?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you like moisturized hands? I just have this really good opportunity for you. You'll have to get a few people to do this as well, and under you.
Okay, so this is feeling a little bit like a pyramid scheme.
Well,
but I'm interested.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
All right.
Okay, how about this one? Now, this one will take a little bit of nuance to work through.
Okay.
Let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers.
Yeah.
Why do you think this is in the book? Why is this important?
Yeah. Well, this is important. I think that people people get more excited about an idea that's theirs rather than being told what to do. I feel like when they can come to the conclusion themselves, they feel more ownership of it, right? Because it's funny is I'll have people on my team, months down the road or whatever, I'll see them take credit for something. I'm like, well, that was my idea, but
Would you like to take some time now to just air all these out?
Yeah, but I'm thinking like, well, that was really my idea, but the fact as a leader, the fact that they take ownership and feel like they came to that conclusion is actually a win, right? Because I don't need the credit for it. I just need that thing to be done. And so those are my thoughts for sure.
I think you're exactly right. And there are those moments where you're kind of biting your tongue of going, yeah. But the reality of it is that, the meaning that it takes on for that person is so much more vivid. It's a different experience for somebody to come up and say, hey, I think we need to do X, Y, and Z. And you're thinking, yeah, that's exactly what we need to do. And I might have had this idea 2 years ago, but at the end of the day, them, are really believing in it and being passionate and taking ownership of it is going to make it stick and much more. And look, at the end of the day, this is an ego check. This book is really about how to navigate the world, with just a slightly less slightly less lens of self-importance.
Yeah.
Right? Who cares that you had the idea? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Again, are you...
Well, and sometimes, honestly, sometimes it's waiting for it to click for them, right? Because I can say, hey, you need to read this book, or hey, you need to do this, or we need to make this move, or we need to hire this person. And then, there's some pushback or they don't agree. And then 6 months later, they're like, hey, I think we need to hire this person. I'm like, oh yeah, I think we should too. Right? Hey, I think I want to read this book. Hey, you know what? That's a good idea.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And so, and part of that is, that's why I like to go to conferences. I like to go outside of the organization, because it's really this power of this second and third voice, right? Reiterating some of the stuff I've been saying.
Yes.
Right.
So, listen, I'm gonna just be really honest with you here. My wife will tell me time and time again, and listen, this has really gotten into a lot of relationship too, which, there's practical application here as well. She will tell me many times that I will tell you things and you won't listen, but you'll listen to it if it's on a podcast.
Yeah.
And then you come to me and go, hey, I've had this great idea I heard on this podcast. And she says, you know what, I told you this 2-3 years ago, and I've been telling you this every day since. So that power of the second, third voice, I'm not the only one.
Oh yeah.
I'm confessing.
Yes.
I'm not the only
No,
one.
it happens here too.
That's right.
I'll be like, hey, this weekend, I didn't think, we really do this. And Laurie be like, I said that 2 months ago, whatever, but, and I'm just like, I wasn't listening. Sorry.
He wasn't listening.
Sorry.
And listen, that's in the book
I was
too.
distracted.
That's in the book too, about really, really trying to hear people, what they're saying. That's another point, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, and phones are a big distraction on that, or whatever's next. Yeah, that's listening.
100%.
That's a big one.
Here's one that I'm going to start to work on with other people that I'm interacting with. Give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think that one, we lead by example. I think that you have the consumers, right, or your clients, and a lot of times they don't see what happens behind the scenes, but your peers do, or your coworkers see what happens behind the scenes, or your team members. And so are you making the more difficult decision because it's the right decision, right? And I think that's where that kind of comes through is, and that happens all the time, right? It's just like, man, I could make this unethical decision, but it would really help our business out, right? But then what are you teaching your team members, right? That they can skirt the line, that they can fudge some numbers, that it's not always about it's always about the bottom line, not necessarily doing what's right or wrong. So
You're making me think of an old adage that says the biggest thief in any business is the owner. So what I'm hearing from you is just being on guard for things like that and how that, comes across. When I'm thinking about give the other person a fine reputation to live up to, I'm thinking about, when you're interacting with somebody and you're essentially verbalizing to them that you believe they have the capacity to be X.
Yes.
You see what I mean? Where you're thinking about maybe a young person where you say, listen, I believe that you are, a fantastically hard worker, very, very bright individual. You've got a bright future. Now, that person has to be open to that. But if they are, hearing someone else say, essentially, I believe in you to do big things, many people don't hear that. Many people don't hear that through their family anymore. I've been struck by the power of telling a young person that I believe in them, how much that's meant to them.
Yeah, and that's in the book where he's talking about, if you want this person to be a great salesman, start calling them a great salesman.
That's exactly right.
Even though they have no sales, right? And they start to believe it. Yeah, I was way off on what I said.
Well, listen, it was a good point.
But now I remember that point in the book now.
Yes.
When he says that, yeah. Well, I see that a lot in parenting too.
100%. Right. I mean, what you're telling your kids on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
Today, dropped off my daughter, and I want to tell her, hey, I believe in you. You can do it. You can be good at math. And she's telling me, no, I cannot.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Is this Einstein over here? Huh? I can't see. Go get him.
Yeah. Well, maybe that works for you. I don't know. I'll try it.
Yeah.
Here's the last one we'll touch on, and then we'll start to wrap this up. Use encouragement.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Use encouragement. Well, I think that something encouraging should really end almost all interactions with your team. And so just saying, hey, you're doing a great job. I try to end, with one of my organizations, I have 3 guys who each lead a team, and they have leadership responsibility and show leadership skills. So I kind of include them in a group text, and I'll try to end the week with something encouraging, and not only just encouraging, but also giving them permission to relax, because they feel, and this is why they're great and why they're still in my organization, but they have huge responsibility for my business and my money and things. And so whenever things aren't perfect, which they never are perfect, they feel that responsibility. And I want to say, hey, listen, it's never going to be perfect, right? Even whenever these fires get put out, there's going to be more fires. It's never going to be perfect. Take the weekend, enjoy your family, and we'll get back to it on Monday.
That's right.
Yeah. And so.
Yeah, I think that's so important. By nature, I think I can be very critical, not necessarily negative, but just always kind of looking for trouble.
Yeah.
I'm always just looking for stuff.
Yep.
It's like, oh, this looks like this could be a problem.
Yeah.
Could be an issue. And so when that's, your default, part of your default programming, it can be hard to understand that in this interaction, I need to find that encouragement gear.
Yep.
I need to find a way to encourage people through this, because ultimately, when you're talking about situations not being perfect, and they never are,
Yep.
but the reality of it is, if I've got this big fire over here, I'm not going to put it all out in one day.
No.
It's going to take me coming to work every day and going, hey, you know what? Today, let's just get a little bit better at it. Let's get a little bit better at it. Hey, we saw improvement today. You did a better job today.
Well, and that's it, right? It's if there's a task, and they just crapped it away. It was horrible. They did a horrible job, right? You got to find the 10% they did right, right? Even if it's like, hey, you gave effort, you showed up at work today.
Praise the effort,
right?
Praise the effort.
But I think that's it. Is just identifying, because I think for us, and me too, for sure. is never going to be perfect, and I can always find the area that can be improved, right? Even if it's 95% great, I'm always going to gravitate to the 5% where we can get better and improve.
Yep.
And so I have to rein that back and give praise and credit and encouragement where it's due. But I think that part of this encouragement is just reminding there is no arrival, right? And that's where we want. We just think, well, if I can get this next sale, everything's going to be great. Or if I can just get this promotion, everything's going to go well. Or if I can just get rid of this employee, everything's going to be great. I'm like, no, because there's another sale that needs to happen for the next month. There's going to be another employee that brings their own set of problems in here, right? And so it's really the encouragement is really seeing the silver lining in things, right? Finding the positive in things. And that's what one of my guys is. I keep saying, hey, are we better today than we were 30 days ago?
Right.
He's like, yes. I'm like, now, is the growth happening as fast as we want? No. Are we anywhere close to where we want to be? No. But have we moved in the right direction at all? And the answer is yes.
Yeah. It's funny because our businesses are different, but when I hear you say that, I think this is exactly what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
This small kind of iterative process or growth towards where you want to be.
Yeah.
And for somebody like myself, we talked about that, I enjoy the scoreboard a little too much at times. I found myself driving to work here today to thinking, man, I'm enjoying seeing this. I'm enjoying seeing these little moments of things getting better. And really, like, I'm getting joy out of it. I enjoy, seeing something that is not what it's supposed to be get closer to where it should be because of the things that we're all working on together.
Yeah, and we have to take time to celebrate those things. We have to. Because what we want to do is be like, oh, that little growth is great. What's next? And that's especially for me, because I'm like always thinking of what's next, what's the next steps. And I have to, it's like petting a golden retriever, right? They bring you the ball. You're like, hey, that's great.
Right.
In fact, my wife's therapist said that your husband's like a golden retriever. Sometimes you just got to pat him on the head and tell him they did a good job.
And I'm sure that she listened. And she's changed.
I took offense. I'm like, I'm not a golden retriever.
Yeah.
I'm like, but tell me I did a good job, please.
Hey, on this podcast, you've done a great job.
Hey,
and I want to leave
you.
it with encouragement.
Thank you.
Anything we want to cover?
What episode number is this?
7? 8. I think it's 8.
8.
Yeah.
Hey, 8 episodes.
8 episodes. Wow.
There we go.
Wow.
Are we going to do so? What's a milestone for an episode? 20,
100?
10, 100? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's 100.
I don't know if I can wait that long.
So we need to celebrate. We need to celebrate.
Well, hey, we are celebrating next weekend.
That's right. We're going to go on the road.
Yeah.
We might have some content, out while we're out and about.
For sure. We'll definitely have some time, hopefully, to define where we want this podcast to go.
That's
some
right.
more guests.
Oh.
Some people have been asking for Jason to come back.
Oh, I think Jason was fantastic.
Yeah.
But maybe some more guests. So, dear listener, if you're still hanging around, we would love to hear suggestions about potential guests or ideas you'd like us to cover. We're still figuring it out.
We are.
We're still learning. We could use some encouragement.
Yes. Some things. So one of the things we want to do is start highlighting a local business. So if you have suggestions for that, send them in.
Yeah, I love that.
Some guests who would give some people who run a really a good business.
That's right.
That might have some insight for our listeners.
For dear listener.
For our two main listeners, our wives who don't work.
No,
so,
not my wife, your mom and your wife.
Okay.
So there you go.
Well, it sounds like your family needs to have a listening party. What would that look like?
I don't know. My dad told me he listened to an episode and he said,
okay,
you know what? You guys started off kind of rough. And then it got better.
There you go.
And that's all I can ask for.
There we go.
That's all I can ask for.
That was encouraging.
It was mildly encouraging. But listen, at the end of the day, how to win friends, influence people, give it to your teenager.
Absolutely.
Get it to your kid. Get it to your friends and family, anybody involved in business. I think this book, even though it was written around the 1930s, is timeless. I mean, it's not going away. Being a good person.
In fact, I would say it's even more important now.
I agree.
I think people smile less now. People listen less now.
Mm-hmm.
People are so distracted, way more distracted.
That's right.
Than they were back then.
That's right.
And back then, you just rode on like a horse and buggy, you know,
Yeah.
next to people. maybe there's a train. People took trains?
That's right.
Yeah. What are you going to do on the train back in the 30s?
You're not flipping through your phone.
No,
Certainly not.
you're going to smile and talk.
All right. Thank you, Leighton.
All right. Yeah.